Okay, look, you're probably not going to believe this. Hell, most days I barely believe it myself, but it started so, ordinarily, just this weird little itch. Not on my skin, though, that's the freaky part. It felt deeper, like it was asterisk inside my arm bone, right in the marrow. Sounds crazy, right? But imagine scratching an itch you physically can't reach. It began as just an annoying background hum, something you barely notice during the day. But at night, I went to the doctor, obviously. Dr. Adams. Old guy, probably seen it all. He just sort of patted my arm. Told me it was probably referred nerve pain or stress. Prescribed some mild painkillers and told me to relax more. Relax. Right. Like I could just asterisk relax away the feeling of something burrowing inside my own skeleton. The pills didn't touch it, of course. They just made me drowsy, which was almost worse. The itching started, shifting. One week it was the forearm, the next it migrated to my left shin. Always deep, always unreachable. It felt like it was exploring, mapping out my structure from the inside. The feeling wasn't just an itch anymore either. Sometimes it felt like a faint vibration, like a tuning fork humming softly within the bone. Or a subtle asterisk grinding sensation, bone against bone, but wrong. Then came the cramps. Not muscle cramps, these were different. Sharp, seizing pains that felt like they originated asterisk from the bone itself, radiating outwards. One hit me while I was driving. My right leg just locked up, the femur screaming in agony. I almost crashed, pulled over, gasping, massaging the thigh, but it wasn't the muscle. It was the bone, I swear it. The pain was sharp, intense, like something was forcefully twisting inside the hard calcium. I went back to Dr. Adams, practically begging for an X-ray, an MRI, anything. I tried to describe the grinding, the vibrating, the bone-deep cramps. He finally agreed to an X-ray, probably just to shut me up. I remember sitting in that cold waiting room, clutching the flimsy gown around me, convinced the images would show something. A tumor, a fracture, a weird density, anything explainable. But when he called me back in, his face was impassive. Psychosomatic. The word echoed in my head. Was I crazy? Was I inventing this intricate internal torture? I started doubting myself, trying to ignore the sensations, telling myself it was just anxiety. But the body doesn't lie, does it? A few nights later, I was examining my arm again, tracing the path of that initial itch. And I saw it. Or rather, I felt it first. Running my fingers along the ulnar bone, there was a slight ridge, not a bump on the skin, but deeper. The ridges became more defined over the next few weeks, not just on my arm, but appearing faintly along my ribs, my shins, even my collarbone. It was like my skeleton was being subtly reshaped, filed down in some places, built up in others, always following the lines of the bones. My skin started feeling tighter, too. Not like weight loss, but like it was shrinking, adhering more closely to the newly defined structures underneath. I started avoiding people. How could I explain feeling my own bones shift? How could I describe the faint, almost imperceptible patterns emerging just under my skin without sounding completely insane? I lost weight, not from lack of appetite, but seemingly from the sheer energy this process was consuming. My clothes hung loosely, making the changes underneath even more apparent to my own touch. The texture of my skin began to change next. It started feeling papery, thin and dry, almost translucent in places. And it developed this weird cross-hatched pattern, incredibly faint, like the grain on old parchment. It wasn't a rash. It covered large areas, my chest, my back, my limbs. If you looked closely, especially in certain lights, you could almost see through it, glimpse the shadowed contours of the bones beneath, more defined now, marked by those disturbing ridges and lines. One night, the cross-hatching seemed darker, more pronounced on my chest. Curiosity, or maybe morbid compulsion, took over. I found a small magnifying glass I had lying around from some old hobby. I held it over my sternum, angling myself under the weak, flickering bulb. What I saw made my breath catch. The lines weren't just random cross-hatching. They were forming symbols. Tiny, intricate symbols, woven into the very fabric of my skin, mirroring the patterns I felt on the bones beneath. Sleep became impossible. Every click, every pop of my joints sounded like punctuation marks in this horrifying transformation. I started hearing whispers, too, not from anywhere outside, but seeming to emanate from within asterisk myself. Faint, sibilant sounds that seemed to coil around the vibrations in my bones. Were they explanations, instructions, threats? I couldn't tell. They were just below the threshold of understanding, maddeningly close. I decided I needed proof, irrefutable proof, something more than faint ridges and barely visible skin markings. I needed to show someone, anyone, what was happening. The sounds, the vibrations, they were strongest along my left clavicle now. It felt loose somehow, like it wasn't fully anchored. Driven by a desperate sort of clarity, I went into the bathroom, stood under that cursed flickering bulb, took a deep breath. Beneath the flap, there wasn't blood or muscle, not really. It looked pale, dry, almost like sculpted ivory, and etched directly onto the bone surface were the symbols, sharp and black, perfectly matching the ones faintly visible on the skin moments before. It was like looking at an anatomical model, but it was asterisk me asterisk. The bone itself hummed faintly under my touch, a resonant frequency that vibrated up my fingers. This wasn't disease. This wasn't decay. It was. Over the next few days, more panels appeared. Small, precisely cut sections along my ribs, my spine, my limbs, hinged flaps of skin that opened with gentle pressure along the symbol lines, revealing the marked bone beneath. They clicked open and shut like the pages of a book, a terrifying living book bound in my own flesh and bone. The whispers were clearer now, coalescing into fragmented anatomical terms, spoken in a dry, sibilant voice that seemed both ancient and intimately familiar. Last night I found a new panel right over my heart. The symbols here glowed faintly with a dim internal light. The whispers urged me to open it, to see the final illustration, the core text. I haven't done it yet. I'm sitting here, feeling the thrum of my own heart against the mechanism beneath, because I finally understand. It's not asterisk my asterisk body anymore, not really. It's a vessel, meticulously prepared, annotated, ready for dissection, study. Started so small you wouldn't even think twice. Just this tiny, persistent twitch in my left pinky finger. Happened a few weeks ago. I was just sitting here, trying to unwind after work, watching some stupid show, and there it was, a little spasmy pulse like it had a life of its own. Annoying, sure, like when your eyelid does that weird thing. I ignored it, rubbed it a bit, figured it was stress or too much coffee. Happens to everyone, right? Just a glitch in the system, but looking back. A couple of days later, the twitch wasn't just a twitch anymore. It felt thicker. That sounds nuts, I know, but the skin around the knuckle seemed tougher, almost calloused, even though I hadn't done anything to cause it. And the movement changed. It wasn't just pulsing anymore. It started doing this slow, deliberate curling and uncurling motion, all on its own, completely independent of the rest of my hand. Then came the texture change. It spread from the pinky, slowly creeping up my hand. The skin felt wrong, not like skin anymore. It was colder than the rest of me, smoother in some patches, but ridged and bumpy in others, like old leather or maybe insect chitin. It's hard to describe. It didn't hurt exactly, but there was this constant, low-level asterisk awareness of it, a tingling, alien sensation beneath the surface. I started wearing gloves, even indoors. One morning I woke up and the nail on that pinky finger was gone. Just gone. Not ripped off, there was no blood, no pain. It was like it had just retracted, absorbed back into the finger. In its place was this hard, dark, almost obsidian-like point. Sharp. I poked it tentatively, and it was rock solid. I remember just staring at it, sitting on the edge of my bed, the early morning light barely filtering through the blinds. The changes accelerated after that. It wasn't just the hand anymore. I started feeling the same creeping coldness, the subtle shift in texture moving up my forearm. Faint gray lines snaked under the skin. And the movement, God, the movement. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and my entire left arm would be propped up beside me, fingers tapping silently on the nightstand. Not frantically, but rhythmically, patiently, like it was waiting or communicating. Then came the toe. Right foot, big toe, same initial twitch starting about a week ago. Then the coldness, the slight discoloration. I knew the pattern now. The dread was suffocating. It felt like I was being colonized piece by painful piece. I started checking myself obsessively. Every itch, every random muscle spasm sent a jolt of panic through me. Is it starting there too? Am I going to just fall apart? Become a collection of rogue parts? I stopped going outside much. What if someone noticed? Last night was different. I felt a sharp, tearing sensation in my left hand. Not pain exactly, more like detachment, like pulling Velcro apart but inside my wrist. I looked down, shaking, half expecting, half dreading what I'd see. The hand, my hand, or what used to be my hand, lay palm up on my lap, only it wasn't attached anymore. There was no blood, no stump, just smooth, sealed skin at my wrist, already looking pale and alien. And the hand. I couldn't move, I just watched it. My hand, the asterisk hand, scuttled off my lap and onto the floor with this quiet, deliberate clicking sound. It moved like an insect, testing the ground, pausing, then moving again. It crawled under the couch, disappearing into the shadows. Part of me, a significant, intimate part of my own body, was now loose in my apartment. Hunting, exploring, I don't know. The silence after it disappeared was worse than the clicking. Sleep hasn't happened since then. How could it? Every time I close my eyes, I imagine that hand crawling, touching things, maybe finding its way back to me, maybe looking for its counterpart. Because this morning the inevitable happened. My right big toe just popped off like a loose button. No pain, no blood, just a clean separation. It landed softly on the dusty floor beside my bed. And just like the hand, it didn't just lie there, it sort of quivered. Then it started hopping. I'm losing parts faster now. An earlobe crumbled away like old plaster this afternoon while I was looking in the mirror. Didn't even feel it go, just saw the little grey piece bounce off the sink. And then it rolled. It rolled purposefully off the edge and onto the floor. Didn't hop or scuttle, just rolled. Like it knew exactly where it was going. It feels systematic, planned. There's a sense of collection. Something is harvesting me piece by piece. I found them, or part of them, under the kitchen sink behind the cleaning supplies. I was looking for bleach, thinking maybe I could sterilize things, I don't know, I wasn't thinking straight. I pushed aside an old bottle of drain cleaner and there it was. Not the whole hand, not the toe, but pieces. The pinky finger with its sharp point was lying next to the second finger, somehow fused together at the base now. The big toe was nestled against them. It looked like they were assembling. It's not just shedding parts anymore. Something else is happening. This morning I felt a sharp pain in my back, right between the shoulder blades, like something tearing through. I managed to get my phone camera angled back there, took a shaky video. Playback nearly made me throw up. There's a lump, a bulge under the skin, stretching it taut. And it's moving, pulsing, like something is growing inside me, trying to get out. It's not taking pieces anymore, it's adding them, adding something that isn't mine. Heard it tonight. A distinct sound from the kitchen, scraping, wet, shuffling noises, like dragging limbs combined with construction. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a rusty pipe wrench from under the sink where the pieces were. They weren't there now. The space was empty. The noises were coming from the center of the kitchen floor. I crept towards the doorway, wrench held high, sweat dripping into my eyes. Peeking around the corner, I saw it, lit only by the pale moonlight through the kitchen window. I didn't fight it, I just backed away, slowly. Closed the living room door as quietly as I could. What was the point? It's made of me. Killing it would be like more self-mutilation, wouldn't it? I sank down against the door, listening to the scraping and clicking continue on the other side. Then a new sound, tapping, soft, rhythmic tapping, coming from my own chest. I looked down at my shirt. There under the fabric, something small was twitching, tapping against my ribs from the inside. It's quiet now. The thing in the kitchen stopped making noise hours ago, but the tapping inside my ribs hasn't stopped. It's stronger now, and there's something else. The stump where my hand was. It itches deep inside, like something is growing back, but I felt it just a minute ago, shifting under the skin. It's not fingers, it feels like wire, bottle caps, like the trash the creature was collecting. It's building itself inside asterisk me now. It started small, almost laughable now, looking back. Just this persistent itch on the back of my hand, right between the knuckles. Not like a normal rash, though. This felt deeper, like it was asterisk inside the bone somehow. It began maybe a week after I cleared out that neglected corner of the basement in the house I just moved into. Found this weird lump. So the next day I'm trying to put up some shelves, making the place mine. Typical DIY disaster. The drill slipped, gouged a decent cut right across the palm of my hand. Hurt like hell, bled quite a bit. I ran downstairs to the basement wash basin, cursing myself. As I passed the workbench, my eyes fell on that lump, and I had this weird impulse. Don't ask me why. Maybe I was just lightheaded from the blood, but I touched my bleeding palm to its surface. Over the next few days, the cut vanished completely. Not even a scar, but the skin where it had been. It wasn't right. It felt different to the touch. Thicker, maybe, and smoother, unnaturally so, almost like polished plastic or carapace, hard to describe. And it had this odd coolness, completely localized to that patch of skin on my palm, no matter how warm the rest of me was. It didn't hurt, didn't itch anymore, just felt alien, like a graft from something else entirely. Sleep started getting weird. Not nightmares exactly, more like fragmented images, strange geometries, clicking sounds, and a feeling of intense cold pressing down on me. I'd wake up shivering even though the room wasn't cold. And sometimes I'd feel this faint vibration coming from my hand, the one with the strange patch, like a phone on silent, buried deep in muscle tissue. Rhythmic, thump, 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 asterisk. Slow, deliberate. It was driving me crazy. Then it happened. I woke up one morning and the back of my hand didn't just itch anymore. There was a patch there just like the one on my palm. Same unnatural smoothness, same slight discoloration, a sort of grayish, oily sheen, same distinct coolness to the touch. It was perfectly circular, about the size of a quarter now. It wasn't painful, but touching it felt fundamentally wrong, like pressing on something that wasn't really my skin anymore. I felt a surge of panic, cold and sharp. The panic subsided into a dull, throbbing dread, and soon, actual throbbing pain. The two patches, palm and back of hand, started to ache. Not a surface pain, but deep, radiating outwards, like the bone itself was protesting. The faint vibration I'd felt before intensified, especially at night. It felt like something was pulsing, growing beneath those unnatural surfaces. Sleep became almost impossible. It was spreading faster now. One morning, a new patch appeared on my forearm, larger this time, maybe 3 inches across. The same smooth, gray, cool surface. Later that day, another spot bloomed just below my collarbone, itching fiercely for an hour before settling into that now familiar alien texture. It was like my own body was betraying me, section by section, converting itself into something else. I finally broke down and tried researching online. Skin turning gray and hard, unnatural smoothness spreading, internal pulsing sensation. Nothing. Just results about circulation problems, skin diseases that looked nothing like this, psychosomatic symptoms. It made me feel even more isolated, more terrified. Was I losing my mind? Was this something totally unknown? I went back down to the basement, unwrapped the object from its towel shroud inside the plastic box. Desperation took over. I had to get this asterisk off me. Back upstairs, fueled by panic, I took a sharp kitchen knife. My hand was trembling, but I pressed the tip against the edge of the patch on my forearm. I gritted my teeth and tried to scrape it, to lift an edge, cut it away. The pain was excruciating, far worse than any normal cut. It wasn't like cutting skin. It was like trying to carve stone. When I finally managed to break the surface, it didn't bleed blood. The change accelerated after that failed attempt. It was like I'd provoked it. The patch on my chest spread rapidly, merging with the one near my collarbone. Breathing became harder, my chest felt tight, constricted by the hardening skin. Then my left hand. The fingers started to feel stiff, unresponsive. I looked down one evening and saw that the lines between my pinky and ring finger were blurring. I stopped looking in mirrors. The reflection wasn't me anymore. It was this asymmetrical horror show. Patches of gray, hardening skin distorting my frame, one hand morphing into something inhuman. I unplugged the phone, locked the doors, drew the curtains. The world outside ceased to exist. My world was this dusty house, the spreading coldness, the deep ache, and the object in the basement. Paranoia gnawed at me. I started going down to the basement more often, not consciously deciding to, but just finding myself there, standing in front of the workbench, staring at the object. There was this undeniable pull, a disgusting kind of magnetism. Part of me screamed to smash it, burn it, bury it. But another part, a part that felt less and less like me, wanted to embrace it. Weeks, months, time lost meaning. The change covered most of my left arm, shoulder, and a large part of my chest and back now. Breathing was a constant, laborious effort against the unyielding casing. The skin cracked sometimes when I moved too quickly, oozing that clear, viscous fluid before sealing itself again, thicker than before. My left hand was completely gone, replaced by the fused, chitinous clothing. I was down there again, inevitably. Kneeling before the workbench, the object pulsing faintly in the gloom, I picked it up. The cold was familiar now, almost comforting. The markings, I traced them with the tip of my transformed claw. The intricate biological-looking diagrams. Suddenly it clicked. Not cell structures, not insect anatomy. They looked like degraded blueprints, manufacturing instructions, and the core pattern repeated over and over in microscopic detail. So now, I just sit here, down in the basement. It's quieter here. The pulsing is strong. I hold the object. Or maybe it holds me. Hard to tell where I end and it begins anymore. Most of my torso is converted, rigid, cold. The transformation is slower now, more methodical, less pain, more integration. Sometimes I hear noises upstairs, creaks, skittering, or maybe that's just the dust settling. I don't know how much of me is left inside this shell. You ever get that feeling, like phantom ants crawling just under your skin? It started like that for me, maybe 3 weeks ago. Just a faint prickle, easy to ignore. But this wasn't phantom. This was real, and it arrived with the intensity of 1,000 burning needles digging into every inch of me, all at once. 1 second I was fine, watching some dumb late-night TV. The next I was practically tearing at my own arms, desperate for relief that wouldn't come. The next morning, the intense, maddening itch had subsided to a dull, constant thrum. But where I'd scratched myself raw, something else was happening. It wasn't scabbed over blood. It was this weird, purplish rash, spreading like mold on damp bread. The texture was all wrong, too. Not bumpy like a normal rash, but strangely smooth, almost leathery, and cold to the touch, even though the skin around it felt feverish. I figured, okay, time for a doctor. Maybe some weird allergic reaction, fungal thing, who knows. I went to a walk-in clinic, feeling embarrassed, pulling up my sleeve. The doctor, tired-looking guy, barely glanced at it, shined his little penlight, poked it once, said it looked like severe dermatitis, maybe stress-related, prescribed some hydrocortisone cream, and told me to try and relax. Relax? How could I relax when my skin felt like it belonged to someone else? The cream did absolutely nothing, surprise, surprise. If anything, the patches seemed to get darker, tougher. And then a new phase started. My skin began to feel incredibly tight, like it was shrinking, pulling taut over my bones. It was worst around the discolored areas. Then it started flaking. Not like dry skin, not like dandruff. These were large, parchment-thin flakes, almost translucent, peeling off around the edges of the purple patches. It didn't hurt, but it was deeply unsettling. This was when the real panic started to set in. Forget the rash, forget the shedding. I was getting dressed one morning, pulling a shirt over my head, when my hand brushed against something hard on my chest, right over my sternum. It wasn't bone. It was a lump, small, maybe marble-sized, sitting just beneath the skin. I pressed it and felt a horrifying sensation. It shifted slightly, gliding under my fingertips, like a trapped beetle. My blood ran cold. Then came the cravings. Not for junk food, not for anything normal. I started wanting the strangest things. It began subtly, this weird attraction to the smell of damp soil after rain. Then, one afternoon, I found myself absent-mindedly picking at a loose piece of plaster on the wall, and before I knew it, I had this overwhelming urge to put it in my mouth. I resisted, disgusted, but the desire was intense, primal. My body started to betray me in more ways than just skin and cravings. My joints began popping and clicking constantly. Every movement was punctuated by these little grating sounds, especially in my spine and shoulders. It wasn't the normal crack you get from stretching. This felt deeper, structural. Sometimes there'd be a sharp, shooting pain accompanying the clicks, like things weren't quite lining up right anymore. The changes accelerated. My hair started falling out in clumps, leaving itchy, irritated patches of scalp behind. But what replaced it wasn't new hair growth. It was something else. Thin, dark, stiff filaments started pushing through the skin, not just on my head, but on my arms and chest too, especially over the purple patches. They weren't soft like hair. They felt sharp, almost like bristles from a stiff brush or insect hairs. They glinted slightly in the light. I started avoiding mirrors, but eventually you have to face it. I forced myself to really look in the bathroom mirror one night. The single bulb overhead cast harsh shadows, making it worse. The face staring back. It was mine, but terrifyingly altered. The purple discoloration had crept up my neck onto my jawline. My skin had a waxy, unhealthy sheen, but it was the eyes that stopped my breath. They seemed flatter, wider. The skeletal changes became agonizingly real. It wasn't just clicking anymore. One evening, while reaching for a glass, I heard a sound like wet twigs snapping loudly inside my own forearm. The pain was immediate, white-hot, dropping me to my knees. It wasn't broken, not in the traditional sense. It felt more like realignment, like the bones themselves were reshaping, lengthening, maybe adding new joints. My fingers felt stiff, clumsy, but also somehow longer, sharper at the tips. It got worse, much worse. The tight, leathery skin couldn't contain the changes happening underneath anymore. One morning, I woke to a tearing sensation on my shoulder. I looked down and saw a long, vertical split in the purple skin. It wasn't bleeding blood, not exactly. A thin, clear, viscous fluid oozed out, but beneath the tear wasn't muscle or flesh. It was something dark, glistening, segmented, like the chitinous plating of an insect. Control started slipping away, not just mentally with the cravings, but physically. My limbs began to twitch and jerk involuntarily, especially my hands and feet. Sometimes my hand would just scuttle, fingers tapping rapidly on a surface like an insect's legs, without me telling it to. Walking became difficult, my legs moving with a strange, disjointed gait, sometimes threatening to buckle or move sideways. It felt like my brain's connection to my own muscles was being severed or rerouted. Standing upright became almost impossible. The constant ache in my rearranged spine intensified, forcing me into a permanent, uncomfortable crouch. My center of gravity felt completely wrong, shifted forward. Walking was a shuffling, hesitant process, my modified legs struggling to support my weight in this new posture. I found myself instinctively wanting to use my hands for balance, knuckles almost brushing the floor. Then my voice failed. I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection of a dark window pane. The thing looking back wasn't human, not even close. My head seemed too small for my hunched, broadened shoulders, which were now covered in dark chitinous plates. My arms were longer, thinner, bent at odd angles, ending in hands that were more like claws, elongated fingers tipped with something sharp. I could feel something shifting, growing beneath the tatters of my t-shirt on my back, a new weight, a pressure. Was I growing? Then finally, the deep, constant itching, the feeling of pressure from within, it stopped. For a blissful second, there was silence, stillness. Then, the splitting began. Not the superficial tearing of the skin this time, but a deep, agonizing rupture down my back. Bones cracked, chitin snapped. I couldn't scream, only produce that awful clicking as unimaginable pressure built. Something pale and segmented, sharp limbs folded tightly, began to push its way out from between my shoulder blades.